Welcome to Money RX for CRNAs. Many CRNAs that we work with approaching retirement have been told to follow the general rule of thumb. Spend your taxable accounts first, then draw from tax-deferred accounts like IRAs and 401ks, and finally, hold off on touching Roth IRAs as long as possible. And there's a lot of truth to that logic, because you're preserving the most tax-favored money for the longest period of time. But that basic approach does not focus on something critical, and that's how to minimize your overall tax bracket throughout all of retirement. And that's really the main driver of where you should pull money from first. Following this conventional sequence can mean accidentally pushing yourself into higher tax brackets year after year, creating a bigger tax bill than you probably want. And there are 3 deeply ingrained beliefs about retirement withdrawals that cause CRNAs to fall into this tax trap. And these beliefs are so embedded in traditional financial advice that most people never question them. Yet, they're responsible for pushing thousands of retirees into unnecessarily high tax brackets throughout their retirement years. Let's use an example. Say you and your spouse have Social Security and a pension that cover part of your overall income needs, but you still need another $50,000 a year from your investments. Together, your Social Security and pension put you at about $60,000 of taxable income. Here's the problem. In 2025, the 12% federal tax bracket for married couples ends at $96,950. Anything above that jumps to 22%, almost double. So if you take that whole $50,000 from, say, your IRA, you'd push your taxable income to $110,000. Now, some of that stays in the 12% bracket, but about $15,000 spills into the 22% bracket. That's a bigger tax bill than you probably want. The real problem is that people are measuring success by the wrong metric. They're focused on account preservation rather than understanding their actual tax exposure. Because when you retire, it's up to you to create your own paycheck. Instead of one salary, you'll be piecing together a series of mini paychecks, maybe from Social Security, a pension, rental income, or your investments. But the conventional withdrawal sequence treats all dollars the same, when the reality is that where you pull your first dollar from in retirement can determine whether you pay 12% in taxes or 22%, nearly double, on that same income. The unintended consequence of this preservation strategy is that you end up paying more in taxes than you need to, and none of us want that. So why do people follow this belief? Because they've been taught that preservation equals success, when in reality, tax bracket management equals keeping more of your money. These 3 misconceptions, the preservation obsession, the tax bracket blindness, and the one-size-fits-all withdrawal myth, all create the same problem. They prevent you from confidently managing your tax bracket throughout retirement and fail to address your real need for tax-efficient income that will maximize what stays in your pocket instead of sending it to the IRS. But there is a clearer approach that flips this narrative entirely. The ideal outcome is creating income in retirement the smart way, so you can keep more of your money, pay less in taxes, and feel confident your retirement income will last. Instead of following a rigid sequence, the ideal approach involves understanding the different types of accounts that you own. Think of them as 3 buckets. One is taxable accounts. These are your individual, joint, or trust investment accounts that aren't inside a retirement wrapper. 2 tax-deferred accounts, your traditional IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, where you got a tax break going in, but will pay taxes coming out. And 3 tax-free accounts, your Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks, where you already paid taxes up front. The solution is strategic withdrawal planning, where you pull from accounts in a way that manages tax brackets by being intentional about which accounts you tap and when. So how do you do that? Step 1 is you want to identify your fixed income sources. Before we even talk about pulling from IRAs, Roths, or brokerage accounts, we need to know what income will show up automatically, no matter what. Think of Social Security, pensions, rental income, or annuities. These are the foundational dollars that don't require you to sell investments or pull from your portfolio. Step 2 is then to calculate your shortfall. What's the gap between the income you'll receive from the fixed sources and the amount you'll actually need to live your ideal retirement lifestyle? That gap, the difference between your lifestyle goal and your fixed income, is exactly what your savings and investments need to cover. Then step 3, manage your tax bracket strategically. And here's how this could work. If you already have $60,000 of taxable income from Social Security and a pension, and you need another $50,000, you don't want all of that to come from, say, your IRA. Why? Because only about $36,000 of that $50,000 fits into the 12% bracket. Anything above that spills into the 22% bracket. So a smarter approach might be to take $36,000 from your IRA, just enough to fill the 12% bracket, and then take the remaining $14,000 from tax-free sources like a Roth account, or even from taxable accounts where you already paid the tax. Now, instead of paying part of that $50,000 at 12% and part at 22%, you've kept it all at 12%. That's meaningful savings. Next, step 4 is to consider the long-term impacts. And here are a couple things to keep in mind. First, do everything you can to let your Roth accounts grow. Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, Roth 403bs. This money you'll never pay taxes on again. So instead of spending that money today, think about the power of letting it double or triple over time. And here's another thing to be mindful of as you decide where to pull funds from first. Required minimum distributions, or RMDs. Starting at age 73, you'll be required to take withdrawals whether you want to or not. And if your IRA has grown untouched for years, those withdrawals could be very large. And in some cases, it may actually make sense to start spending down your IRA in the early years of retirement to keep the balance at a manageable level. Another thing to watch is Social Security taxes. Anywhere from 0% to 85% of your benefit can be included in taxable income. Now, that doesn't mean that it's taxed at 85%. It just means that portion gets added to your income and then taxed at your normal rate. Once your provisional income crosses certain thresholds, more of your Social Security gets pulled into the tax formula. Another factor to be mindful of when deciding where to pull funds from is something called IRMA surcharges. These are the extra amounts you might have to pay on your Medicare Part D and Part B premiums if your income is above certain thresholds. Now, for 2025, if you're married filing jointly and your adjusted gross income is under $212,000, you won't pay any IRMA surcharges. And if you're single, the threshold is cut in 1/2. So understand how your withdrawal choices can open the door to other tax strategies. And one example of this is Roth conversions, shifting money from a traditional IRA into a Roth in order to shrink future RMDs and lock in tax-free growth. Another is tax gain harvesting. If your income is low enough, you can sell investments in a taxable account, realize gains, and pay $0 in federal capital gains tax. So as you can see, there is not a single one-size-fits-all way to pull funds from retirement. The real goal is to 1, identify your fixed income sources. Again, Social Security, pensions, rental income. 2 would be to calculate your shortfall, how much your portfolio needs to cover. And then 3, be strategic about withdrawals. Pull from accounts in a way that manages tax brackets, avoids unnecessary Social Security taxes or Medicare surcharges, and creates room for strategies like Roth conversions and gain harvesting. And here's the bigger point. Where you pull money from first is all about managing your tax bracket. By being intentional, you can keep your taxes lower for longer, which means more of your money goes towards your retirement lifestyle instead of the IRS. When you take this intentional approach, you not only create the income you need, but also keep more of it in your pocket instead of sending it to the IRS. Thanks so much for listening or watching. I'm Brett Fellows with Oak Capital Advisors. If you know someone who could benefit from this conversation, please share this episode with them. Helping others retire smarter is what this show is all about. And if you found value in today's episode, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. We've got more strategies coming your way to help you lower taxes, invest smarter, and make work optional. Also, I've put together a retirement checklist to get you started. It should get you thinking about these 6 critical areas you need to address: your financial foundation, investment strategy, tax planning, healthcare transition, career identity shift, and legacy planning. Check it out in our show notes below.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. This podcast does not engage in rendering legal, financial, or other professional services.